Hello, hello, hello. It is your guy, Coach Reg, and welcome back to another edition of Sip and Chill with Coach Reg. I am excited to be here with you, and I'm excited for those of you who will be here with us live, to include those of you who will see this on replay. So when you come in, please be sure to say hello. So before we get into the topic and why you are here, we will talk about a little bit about me, right? So I'm Coach Reg, relationship coach, founder of Sip and Chill with Coach Reg, a virtual lounge, if you will, where members learn to start, strengthen, and sustain relationships. Also the founder of Are You Coached, which is a relationship coaching platform geared toward helping individuals identify, participate, strengthen, and sustain relationships. And there's a coaching model that supports all of that. So Are You Coached asks the questions rhetorically. Are you focused? Are you purposeful? Are you evolving? If not, are you coached, right? And so within the platform, we focus on identifying, participating, strengthening and sustaining relationships. And the coaching model allows you to learn, teaches you how to do those things so that you can ultimately identify, participate, strengthen, and sustain, which will make you focused, purposeful, and evolving. So I'm excited about that. Definitely excited about that. And I coach with my clients around the model. Okay, I can't really talk about it now because I'm in process of trademark. So, but yeah, that's the gist. So my clients are high achieving professional men and women who have attained many of their professional goals, but may not yet have the interpersonal relationship that best complements him or her. And we coach around those things. So the challenges they may have in a relationship, or even starting a relationship, right? Because some people have been out of the game, either out of a long-term relationship, out of a marriage. Some folks may be married and just want to strengthen their relationship. Some folks are not necessarily in a marriage, but they want to strengthen the relationship that they're in. So yeah, that's what we focus on with Are You Coached? And I'm excited to do that, excited to support and serve others in that space. And so if that's something that you need help or support, or not help, but support or service in, you can totally schedule with me at bit.ly Coach Reg session. And that actually is in the link. So you'll see that as well. Oh, by the way, I see a lot of you are popping on. Welcome. Glad you are here. Be sure to say hello when you get here. Excited that you are. So yeah, happy Friday. Welcome back to the lounge. So yeah, saboteurs, right? How to avoid the saboteur when the saboteur is you. Now, as you know, I asked several questions in the group this week, and anyone can respond, and many people did, and I appreciate that. I want to share some of the responses before we actually get into the content of how to avoid the saboteur, how to avoid you, right, when the saboteur is you. So let's get into some of the questions that we touched on in the group this week. The first was, what internal thoughts drive your actions in relationships that do not serve you? And Gwen said, lack of trust is a big issue for me. I will usually go in with open arms, ready to see him unfiltered, but unfortunately, it doesn't take much inconsistency, catch him in a lie, etc., for me to close arms and look at everything beyond that with skepticism. I'd like to change that and be more vulnerable, but I'm not there yet. That's just honest. Dennis, that's why I love when my guys contribute as well. Dennis says, a lot of times when in a relationship, we don't share our thoughts. We just automatically assume that the person knows what we're thinking. And we tend to hold on to our thoughts, and then it becomes anger. Nikki says, the idea that another person can make me happy when in fact I'm the only one who can do that. Happiness comes from within and cannot be dependent upon another person. They can add or subtract from your happiness, but never create it. Listen, let me say something to you. I love you guys. I do. You know why? Because my goal is to ask thoughtful questions that provoke and stimulate thought. And these responses are just that, extremely thoughtful. And I just appreciate it. I just wanted to say, I appreciate you guys. I do. Next question. What internal thoughts serve as your advocate and keep you balanced in your relationships? Audrey says, knowing that I can speak freely and be direct about how I'm feeling and know that it's coming from a place of love and concern, not hurt. Next, have you sabotaged the relationship because you feared success or because you feared failure? Dennis says, and honestly, I've sabotaged some relationships simply because I was a fool. Some I've sabotaged because I didn't want to be tied down at the time. Being in a relationship is like getting a new job, except you're always on the clock 24 hours a day. Yeah, that's part of the deal, right? Being responsible and accountable to your person and to yourself and to the relationship. Gwen, she says, I wouldn't say sabotaged, but I have abruptly ended a relationship because I suspected it would fail. I had seen possessiveness in his behavior and honestly could have compromised or stayed to work it out. But when I talked to him about it, it turned into an argument, and I had seen that behavior before. So I had convinced myself that he was no different from the previous one, so I walked away without notice or explanation. That is also very honest and very kind of like, I'm out. And so, hey, we kind of make our choices. Last question. How do you adjust when you realize your thoughts are manifesting unwanted outcomes? Lakeisha says, this is an ongoing exercise for me. I literally say, you need to stop. How did you jump all the way there? It is retraining that I have to go through from hearing so many negative perceptions about relationships growing up. So you guys can see the comments yourself in the group if you choose, but want to get into it, right? So again, the responses were very thoughtful because the questions were intended to stimulate thought, right? And so to understand what a saboteur is, really it's a thought, right? So let's look at saboteurs. And actually you have a champion called the Sage, and we'll get into that too. So saboteurs are those internal thoughts that tear down or destroy and that do not serve you. So saboteurs are those internal thoughts that tear down or destroy and do not serve you. Whereas sages are thoughts that serve you, they champion you, and they advocate for you. Yeah, very necessary, very needed. See, because we have to have a counter thought. We have to have something to combat the thought that's sabotaging, right? But before we get there, let me share with you where these topics come from. So this one was kind of cool. I talk to people often, and someone was sharing with me recently that they met someone new, getting to know, and she said that she could have sabotaged getting to know, or even getting to know this man, because when she first saw him and learned what he did, she was attracted to him. But then when she learned what she did, she realized that she had a bit of he does that. Not that what he does is bad, right? So she's white collar, he's blue collar. Not that blue collar is bad, clearly. They're blue collar folks who out-earn white collar folks every day of the week and twice on Sunday. So let's not get that twisted. But the idea was the perception, right? So she had an idea of what, it's like, I wouldn't talk to a man, or I wouldn't entertain or consider a man who has a blue collar profession. And good on her, because what she did was because she didn't do that, she was able to see the person. And we're going to get into that in a bit, right? So let's talk about, so that's where the topic comes from, right? That's where this comes from. How to avoid the saboteur when the saboteur is you. Now, let's talk about saboteurs, because I want you to understand what that is. And I want to also share with you that this list is not exhaustive, but it's just a few things I'm going to share with you in a bit that speak to how saboteurs can sabotage and prevent you from moving forward in your relationships or even having them at all. Okay, or you may miss people because of it. Saboteurs. Saboteurs are patterns of thinking, feeling, and reacting that become soft-coded in our brain through neural pathways. When these neural pathways are triggered, we are hijacked, literally, our thoughts, right, by our saboteurs, and we begin to feel and think and act using their patterns. So it's about thoughts, right? So saboteurs. So sages are the counterbalance, right? So we know that we're going to be doubtful. We know that we're going to, I don't know, because we have experiences, and saboteurs come to sabotage, so they don't serve us. Now they can make us think that we should do something that we shouldn't do, behave in a way we shouldn't behave, act, and it's just they don't serve us. So we have to first be aware, right, that that's happening, and when it does, how do we talk ourselves down? How do we walk ourselves back, right? So, before we go on, is this making sense? Because what I will not do is continue absent of that. Are we tracking? Just some thumbs up or something. Hey, let me know we're good. That would be cool for me so I can see where you all are with this. I'm going to continue, but I just want to make sure we're good. All right. So, fantastic. So here we are. We're going to look at five saboteurs, in my opinion, that if left unchecked, can easily and subtly sabotage you and your relationships. So the first, kind of touched on this one already with the person I told you about, and it's called the judging saboteur. The judging saboteur can be judging someone's profession, assuming what they earn or can afford could prevent you from seeing the person. Because we have our ideas of what something should look like or what we think it is if we have a high opinion of ourselves or we think we're at a certain place. I mean, listen, it happens. Anyone is susceptible to that. You're not wrong. It's just honest. If that is something that you struggle with, right? You see someone's like, I don't know if I consider that person. It is totally fair. Someone asked me the other day, she says, Reg, would you date a woman who drove a beater? Beater is a car that's like busted, right? It has body cancer. It's just, gets you A to B. It's nothing special, nothing fancy. It's a beater, right? And so my response to her was simple. I said, it depends. And the reason it depends is because that's a car. Most women don't care about cars. I mean, some do, but it's not something that women typically care about. But if that is reflective or indicative of how she lives, then yeah, the answer is no, I wouldn't, because she's consistent. It's one thing to drive a beater, but not live like one, like you live in one. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, you just got to know and ask more questions, right? And say, hey, maybe let me peel back some layers to see. But not just to say no off the top. Find out what's behind the door, so to speak. Yeah, so we talked about the judging. So the sage, when this saboteur shows up for you, the sage reminds you, your sage, our sage, reminds you to be open, not to judge a book by its cover. Once you turn the pages, what you learn could be fascinating. Yeah, it could be. It totally could be. So let me ask you, who has or does struggle with the judging saboteur? Does it ring true? Sound familiar? Heard that before? Where are you with that? Just curious. Oh, this is Sip and Chill, but I'm not sipping this week. I just needed some water. So I'm going to do that to see if any of you have a response to my question. Do you or have you struggled with the judging saboteur? And it doesn't have to be the person's profession. It could be whatever you chose, whatever you judged them on, right? That you didn't think was, yeah. Number 2, the fear of rejection saboteur. Another example of a saboteur could be thinking someone is out of your league, or thinking that the person would not notice you. That's not good, right? Because that, to me, it's more of a self-image, self-esteem, how you see yourself. Because when you understand your value and worth, no one is off limits, because they're a person just like you. They get dressed just like you. This is to a man, to a woman who sees a man that she admires, a man who sees a woman that he is interested in. The same holds true. It starts with the person in the mirror, right? And listen, let me be very clear. Let me be very, very clear. I understand that it is uncomfortable to put yourself out there, right? To say something to someone. It's like, I don't know how they're going to respond. You got to pick your spots. And what I mean by that is you have to pick your spots in terms of when you're going to say something, if at all, to the person. Try to minimize your risk. Don't maybe not walk up to them when they're surrounded by their friends and say, hi, I'm so-and-so, and may not go well, right? Because you don't know. So you want to give yourself an opportunity maybe to speak to the person when they're not in a group setting. Now, obviously, this is pre-pandemic. But even now, if you're dating online or if you see someone out, because a lot of people, all of us, many of us are back in the workplace. So you may see people there behind the mask and you're like, I think this person's attractive. I can't really tell. Because I know some folks are like, I don't know what's happening, but no believe the birds of their nose. You know what I'm saying? So it depends on where you are with that. But my point is, there's nothing wrong with saying hello. Here's the deal. We tend to think more about what someone's going to think of us when the reality is they're not thinking about us. They're thinking about themselves. This is why the confidence needs to live here at home in your heart, right? So again, be you man or woman, it's nothing wrong with saying hello. Here's what you want to know about anybody that you find attractive that you do not yet know. The first thing you want to know is if they're polite, if they're friendly. Because does it matter if you find a person attractive, if they're unfriendly? When you say hello, or if you were to say hello, or you create in your mind that I don't want to say anything because they'll be like, I don't know. How about just say, what do you have to lose? Everything to gain. So let's talk about this thing called fear for a second, right? What is fear? I was listening to a sermon not long ago, and this was so awesome. I'm actually at last weekend. And the definition given in that sermon of fear was the present perception of a future threat. I said, man, that's pretty awesome. Because that's what it is. It's a perception of what we imagine won't be good for us. It's fear. It's not real. It's what we imagine. Your imaginations, right? So the fear can stop us. That saboteur can stop us from acting because we're afraid of a response. I submit to you, feel the fear and do it anyway. Why? What do you have to lose? Nothing. What do you have to gain? Everything. Why? Because you get the answer versus wishing you have said something, had done something that would spark a conversation, i.e. hello, right? Say hi. Doesn't cost you anything. It's cool that you find the person attractive. But what you really want to understand is if it's possible, if the person is open, what you want to know is if the person is open to you, if they're friendly. And sometimes you can easily mistake friendliness or someone being polite for interest, and they're not the same, which is why you need to qualify the politeness or the friendliness to verify that it is indeed interest. And it's called a conversation. How do you do that? You take the moment given you. Yeah, I coach people on this as well. Yeah, this is one of those other things too. Because some people would just kind of freeze up. Where it's like, oh my God, what do I say? Start with hi. Okay? Because you want to know if the person is even open, if they're friendly. And then you simply take the moment given you. Yeah, that's all. And you don't want to spend a lot of time. Again, I'm not going to get into that now because that's what I work with folks on too. So we won't get into that. But there's a way to do it. And by doing it, here's the good news. By doing it, you defeat the saboteur and you build confidence. Yeah, you do. Because confidence comes by doing, not by thinking. It comes by acting. Just saying. How we doing? Thumbs up? I'm good with that. Just want to make sure we're tracking. So yeah, I think I said this, but I want to repeat it. With the fear of rejection saboteur, your sage reminds you that you are worthy. And not being chosen isn't a reflection of your value. It's not. You know, some people say, oh, it's your loss. It's their loss. It really isn't. Because if they don't value it, is it really a loss? And it's something we tell ourselves to feel better. But that's not the answer. Here's what I would submit to you to consider. A different thought that will serve you along with your sage. Instead of saying it's your loss, consider saying thank you for not wasting my time. How many times do we pursue something or someone that isn't for us, isn't good for us, doesn't value us? And then we get caught up because it becomes emotional, or they present an image that suggests that they have a mutual interest when it really isn't. So be grateful when someone says, no, listen, I know in the moment it stings. I'm not crazy. I'm human. It's happened. Thank God I have a short memory. That's why I play golf, right? Because if I hit some shots, it's crazy. I don't know how many of you are golfers, men or women, but what you'll know about golf is that typically around the end of your round, you hit a shot that makes you come back. You could have stunk it up before that, right? But you get to the last shot, it's like, oh man, I'll be back. Because you have a short memory, right? You forget about all the bad that happened and you keep moving. Same thing with meeting someone, same thing with not even getting to know, but same thing with handling and managing, that rejection thing, okay? Yeah. That's how you think about it. That's why coaching is so important. It's how you think about things. It's perspective. That's why we need our sages. Number 3. You ready? Yeah. People always leave me, Saboteur. Yeah. This saboteur can show up in relationships, and in my opinion, is also known as the waiting for the other shoe to drop. How many people have heard that one before? I'm just waiting for the other shoe to drop. You know, listen, I hope you hear me on this. I've heard that primarily from women, in all fairness. But I recently heard, and I knew this was true, but I was grateful that I heard it because I know men struggle too. Ladies, hear me. Men struggle too, because in both situations, you have people, before we get into the meat of this, I want to say this really quickly. You have folks who are happy to be with someone because they view the person as a prize. And they accept whatever comes with that. And what I'm saying to you is, that's not who you want to be. So when we talk about waiting for the other shoe to drop, you're like, this is not going to last. You're already going into it thinking that it's just a matter of time before this person bounces out on me. And the lady the other day said to me, she said, this is her guy, has said to her on a number of occasions, I'm waiting for you to I'm waiting for you to tell me when you're done. Because I just feel like you're going to leave me. I feel like you're going to go. The problem with that, based on the story she shared about their relationship, the problem is there's no personal accountability. Because if you value yourself, who says that? I'm sorry. I'm just going to keep it a buck right now. Who says that? I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. It's like, what is going on, or where is the gap that you feel that you need to say that to another person because you expect them to leave you? Now, in fairness, listen, when this saboteur pops up, it happens when you believe it's a matter of time before the person no longer chooses you or the relationship. Now, again, in fairness, if you're someone who has struggled with abandonment or feelings or thoughts of abandonment, I get that. So I'm not talking to you because that may be some deeper issue that may be a therapy thing. Not necessarily. It could be a coaching thing also, because coaching is around awareness. But if that abandonment, those issues, you got to look through your life and think about, okay, how many situations do I treat each of my relationships, or when I feel myself getting close to someone, I'm afraid because I feel they may leave me. And it doesn't have to be it may not necessarily be a romantic relationship. It can be any relationship. because you're guarded and protected because you're afraid that the person's going to bounce. So you're like, I'm not going to let you get that close. That can be worked on, because there may be some things that you're not aware of that can be discovered, that need to be discovered, that will help you. See, because understand, this is a management game, folks. See, understand, saboteur is going to show up. Sages are your counterpoint, your counterbalance. It's how you manage through. Yeah. If you do struggle with that, right? If you struggle with abandonment, you have abandonment concerns or issues, dare I say that, use that word, but you're aware of your challenges, right? If you're in a relationship, discuss it with your person so that when they see behaviors or they recognize that you're triggered, we talked about that earlier, neural triggers, hello. They can say, hey, babe, it's showing up again. I'm here. I promise I'm not going anywhere. It's like, oh, thank you. Thank you for that. Someone who cares about you, someone who's concerned about you, they will support you. They're not going to laugh at you, look at it as if, like, what's wrong with you? That's correct. No, they're going to be like, I don't understand it, but I want to, because I want you to know I'm here. Yeah. Next. Number 4. We talked about this a couple of sipping shows ago. I think it was a couple of weeks ago. We did poor communication, the poor communication saboteur. And in that sipping show, we discussed 7 ways poor communication can sabotage relationships. Afraid to say what needs to be said. You don't feel heard, valued, or regarded. Your sage reminds you to be courageous enough to say what needs to be said respectfully and constructively, regardless of outcomes. Why is this important? Because you got to know that you matter. You have to remember your value. When you remember your value, it also serves as a sage. Because remembering your value is likely going to counter the saboteur. If you're thinking that, oh, the shoe is going to drop, for example, right? The abandonment one, like some people always leave. If you're thinking about fear of rejection, saboteur, oh man, they're going to say no. Value, I'm good regardless. Thank you for not wasting my time. Appreciate you. Glad I know that your friendly was friendly and not interest. I'm happy because you saved me time. I learned years ago, the time I spend trying to convince one, I miss out on 2, 3, and 4 who would say yes right away. Why is that? Because I understand my value. And it's not cocky. It's not arrogant. It's confident. But it's also convinced. Because no one's going to love you like you love you. And you can't expect someone to love you if you are not good at loving you yourself. Just saying. Just saying, saboteurs are real. It's how we think and move. It may seem like, oh, I got this. All right. But you guys heard some of the responses. People are thinking about this. Those were thoughtful responses. Because people have reflected on their experiences and said, man, I can do this differently. But guess what? Not everyone is able to. Not everyone is strong enough to. Again, why you may want to invest in coaching. Because these things, these saboteurs can prevent you from experiencing the relationships and the loves you say you desire. So, when we look at it all, it's really around how we think. We talked about poor communication being the fourth one, the fourth saboteur. How are we doing so far? We're about to go to number 5. Are we good? Thumbs up at work. For some reason, I'm not seeing your thumbs up. That's okay. But I just kind of want to know. I get notifications that it's tracking, but I just want to make sure we're on the same page. We're about to go to number 5. And then we're going to get out of here. Okay, now, this one is or can be a big one for people who are very caring, very thoughtful, very compassionate. I would submit to you that persons who identify as an empath will struggle with this saboteur. The selfless saboteur. Considering others at your expense. You're more concerned with what others think, how they feel, or how they may be impacted by a choice or a decision that you make, yet you're not afforded the same consideration. The sage reminds you to vet your thoughts and your actions before executing. Do I believe or know that my efforts are matched? Yeah. So many people, and I guess, and I love that it's not just women, it's men as well. Men and women struggle with this. Because if you're a caring person, your inclination is to care, is to do, is to nurture, it's to be there for. It's to support however you can. That's because that's who you are. That's not a bad thing. But your saboteur will keep you there, and your sage will remind you, hold up, have they earned this? Do they deserve this effort, this love, this support, this compassion, this empathy? Do they deserve me? It's not always about what someone else thinks, how they're going to feel. I'm not saying don't consider other people. Please don't hear that. What I'm saying is do not continue to consider others at your expense. And there are people who legit struggle with that. That's why it's a saboteur. And thank God we got sages. Talk ourselves down. Right? Yeah. That's it. Saboteurs sabotage. Right? Sages champion. Sages support us. Sages remind us to consider ourselves, to remember our value, to remember our worth, right? To recognize that if you didn't choose me, okay, yeah, it hurts a little bit. It stings because I kind of wanted you to, or at least I thought I did. But let me tell you something. Don't want anything that don't want you. Don't want anything so badly where you compromise you to have it. And listen, we all are susceptible. That's why we need the support of our sages to say, wait a minute, let me check in with me. How am I doing? Am I good? I encourage checking in with you daily because life deals you blows. And this is not, now granted, we're talking about in relationships, but saboteurs show up every day. They show up in the workplace. They show up in your personal relationships. They show up at home. They show up, with your family, with your friends. All I'm saying is, as you go about the business of living your life, be aware of your saboteurs and keep your sages close by because you're going to need them. Yeah. So, I think that's all I got for you. You have any questions, comments, or thoughts? For some reason, I'm not seeing your comments. If you've written anything or said anything, I'm not able to see those. I'm not sure why Facebook does that from time to time. It's just really ridiculous. But in any event, yeah, if you have any questions, you guys know how to reach me. DM. Obviously, you can see the link, bit.ly Coach Reg session to schedule your chemistry session if you're interested in learning more about how coaching can serve and support you in your relationships. And fellas, listen, I appreciate your contribution this week. We need to step that thing up because I want to do some more with men and women. Last week we did a lot. I think some of you were there. If you didn't, you'll see this on replay or what have you. But you may have seen the live from last week. We had guests on. We did Ask Coach Reg, and quite frankly, no men showed up, and that's not cool. I was hoping that men would be there, would choose to be there, because the perception, the comments, and the thoughts are welcomed, because men have perceptions, women have perceptions, and sadly, we don't communicate and converse with each other about those. We just keep existing in them. And that's problematic. So, it's one thing to say I'm into relationships and I want my relationship to work and I'm open and all these things, but if you're not willing to really dig in to ensure that you're prepared, you're doing yourself a disservice. More than that, you're kidding yourself. Let me just forget disservice. You're kidding yourself. All right? Doesn't work that way, because we need each other and we have to communicate about those things. Because I promise you, as different as we may be, is as similar as we are. Just my humble opinion. But we have to talk to each other. We got to discuss some things. So I say all that to say, when there's another Ask Coach Reg, another opportunity for men and women to come together to have some adult conversations around relationships, absent of judgment, criticism, or ridicule, say yes. That's all. You have the choice. So anyway, that is all I have. I don't see your questions. I don't see any comments. Hope it made some sense. Hope it helped. Hey, listen, have a fantastic weekend, evening, and weekend. Please stay safe. Looking forward to hanging out with you next week. Next week's topic, look for it probably Sunday. I already have it. The work is already done. I think you're going to dig it. So make sure you come back next week. Well, better yet, look out for it, but I think you're going to be there. Oh, I want to say this too before I let you go. Thank you all. Thank you to all of you who are helping to grow the community. Totally appreciate it. But do me a favor, instead of inviting them, please share the link, the direct link with them, instead of just clicking invite friends. Because what happens is they may not see the invitation. But if you send them the link via DM, when they click it, they're going to be prompted for those questions. And so they're questions to be admitted to the group, and accepting the group rules, admission is right away. But for persons who just get invited, they may not see it, and if they just say you can't bypass the questions because they don't even know they existed, because they said, okay, someone invited me, and they show up in the queue, but there is no information about the questions being answered or the group rules being accepted. So they just sit there, and it's like, this isn't cool. So please, again, thank you for inviting folks. Thank you for believing in this and finding the value in it. That is absolutely awesome and appreciate it. But please send them the link directly versus inviting them, because again, it adds an extra step for you and me. Okay? So that's it. If you have any questions, obviously DM me. You can also reach me at reg@rucoached.com. And I think you see the link for coaching. Listen, everyone, have a fantastic evening, weekend, stay safe. It's your guy, Coach Reg, and I love. I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.